Story 1. Live in Tampa, Zone A. My husband and I evacuated out of state with our dogs and important items. I parked my car at my friend's parking garage on the 6th floor to avoid flooding, and we drove my husband's car out. We left around 4:30 a.m. on Tuesday, so no extensive traffic. Some pockets of slowdown, but no real gridlock. Luckily, I'm glad we are safe, but I am sick to my stomach over what's going to happen to our community. Story 2. My mother-in-law evacuated on Monday. She was not going to wait until the last minute. She made sure the breakers were off, water and gas were off, and everything was unplugged from the outlets. She moved all her valuables to the 2nd floor. She is also one of the few in her neighborhood that has flood insurance. She is hoping for the best. She took pictures of everything just in case for insurance purposes, and she drove here to Kansas. She did not want to risk her car getting flooded. She did the right thing in my opinion. I hope others do as well. Story 3. South Tampa, Florida. Checking in. I lost most everything, including my car, from Hurricane Helene. I stayed in my apartment until Monday. I'm in Zone A, which means mandatory evacuation. I took all that I had left and what could fit in my car. I had to leave some things behind. My cat and I are at a hotel, hopefully safe. I'm not entirely sure what or where my next move is. It's a scary, confusing, and exhausting time. Story 4. Interstates were bumper-to-bumper northbound all day Monday and Tuesday. They opened up the shoulders and in some cases turned southbound lanes into extra northbound lanes. I left Tampa for Orlando late Tuesday night, and Interstate 4 was pretty clear by then. Gas is hard to find in some isolated areas, but it sounds like there's plenty on the evacuation routes, just long lines at the pumps. Most people are complying with the evacuation orders. It's been slow but orderly. It took my parents 10 hours to get to South Carolina, and that's usually a 5-hour drive. It's just a lot of people to move. Evacuation taking only twice as long as normal traffic is actually really good. Yes, Orlando is also in the path, but it's less prone to flash flooding here, and I have a generator, which I don't have at home. My parents have a recreational vehicle, so they evacuated out of state with that yesterday morning, and I'm staying at their place. I should be fine here. The biggest worry is tornadoes rolling through this afternoon, but there's really no dodging those anyway. I don't know anyone who thinks the government is making the hurricanes, but I don't really hang out with foolish people. It seems like most people in the Tampa area are taking it seriously and acted early to evacuate appropriately. Helene was a decent warning shot for us with record storm surge. They're saying this one will likely have a bigger storm surge. We're still completely saturated, and they're predicting up to 18 inches of rainfall, so flash flooding is a big concern on top of storm surge, which is why I left to go inland, even though I'm not in an evacuation zone. Story 5. St. Petersburg resident here. Honestly, the evacuation wasn't horrible. I ended up going to Orlando, still in the path of the storm, but it should be much less intense. The worst part of all of this is the dread. There's such a heavy grief and sadness in St. Petersburg, and it was really hard to leave knowing I might be coming back to a disaster. I might come back and my whole home and all my things are gone. I'm glad I'll be safe and physically sound, but I'm already mourning the city that I love so much and all the beautiful people that live there. It is incredibly endearing to see so much support and love being shared in these comments. The Tampa Bay community is so unbelievably special, as many of you are attesting to. If there's one silver lining in this, it's knowing that we are truly in this together and will rebuild together to restore this shared place we love. Story 6. I'm not in Florida, but an 82-year-old family friend is. He is right on the coast in Tampa and is refusing to evacuate. I'm pretty worried about it, but it's too late for me to fly down, rope up the guy, and drag him north. Edit, he's fine. Apparently, no one could get a hold of him because he left in the morning to go to a friend's house since he didn't have power and his phone wasn't charged. Story 7. My aunt and uncle were planning on staying in Venice to support some neighbors who could not leave. That has changed, and they are gathering those neighbors and pets and going to our empty seasonal condo a bit inland. They can't reach the property manager to get the key, but my uncle is a retired firefighter, and I am confident in his ability to get in. I told him I'll replace the door frame if I have to. Story 8. Estimated time of arrival. Wow. Thank you for my first award and all the votes. My family and I are safe and have no damages or issues. We lost power for 10 hours, but no other problems at all. Very grateful. It rained for 24 hours straight, and heavy gusts of wind rattled our windows all night. I'm in Southwest Florida, but inland, non-evacuation zone, 100 feet above sea level. My area is safe enough that we have shelters here for some evacuees, so we are at home prepared to shelter in place. A lot of people unfamiliar with Florida think we all in the forecast cone need to evacuate, but we don't. The evacuation zones exist for a reason, so the high-risk areas can evacuate in time and not have to compete with millions of extra people from a low-risk area. Estimated time of arrival. A lot of people are also unfamiliar with our topography. Not every part of Florida has the same type of risks. Many of my friends live in evacuation zones A and B and already evacuated between yesterday and today. Traffic was bad. 10-hour drives due to gridlock traffic, gas shortages, hotels fully booked all over, etc. Right now, it's just an eerie calm and waiting game. I have lived through a couple of hurricanes, and this is the first time I'm genuinely concerned. Story 9. Mom's pretty close to the path. She's hunkered down with the dog. All the windows are hurricane rated, with a new roof built to the latest code, and a whole house generator with a buried propane tank to power it. She's outside the mandatory evacuation zone, and the local shelter is only about 300 yards away, as the crow flies anyway, and she's close to the highest point in the county. Fingers crossed. Story 10. Sarasota checking in here. It wasn't too terrible getting out. I'm in Zone A and just went to a friend's place inland. This was before it became a direct hit for Sarasota. Anyway, I live on a barrier island 10 feet above sea level. I am fully prepared for my house to be entirely underwater after this. Story 11. Having never lived in an area affected by these types of natural disaster events, how long in advance are people aware of the incoming danger? Have people known about this for more than a week? I imagine the panic shopping for supplies must be nerve-wracking, and trying to ensure a safe exit from the path. Story 12. My dad and stepfamily are near Port Charlotte. They planned to ride it out when it was headed for Tampa. They saw the shift south yesterday, but they still weren't in an evacuation zone, so they still decided to wait it out. Late last night, they finally got an alert that their zone needs to evacuate. There is no gas anywhere, and the only shelters they can make it to are also technically in the same zone they live in. They should have evacuated days ago when my brother and I were asking them to. Now they're out of luck. They're totally boarded up and finally bought flotation devices after I begged them to. They're about 15 feet above sea level, so it's cutting it really close if the storm surge will get to them. Story 13. This one feels very different. I'm inland by Orlando, so my experience has been more people heading this way. Resources are strapped. No gas, shelves empty, it's pretty bad. The worst part is the information train. It's hard to differentiate information. This storm is moving quickly, and it has yet to de-intensify. It would be really nice for this thing to slow down. This storm is very scary. You can feel it. I pray for the West Coast and everyone in Milton's path. Let us all hope for this storm to de-escalate as expected. Stay safe, everyone, and listen to yourself and the official messaging. Do not play games with this. The Category 5, 4, or 3 is no joke. The Category 1 can be no joke. Story 14. I'm located in the Tampa Bay area, 6 miles from the coast. Here's my take. They evacuate by flood zones and type of residence here. If you are in Zone A or B, you are in a low-lying coastal area with under 10 feet of sea level elevation and are under mandatory evacuation. If you are in Zone C in some places, it's mandatory. Any mobile homes or trailer parks are under mandatory notice to evacuate, and some are not leaving. Police are going door to door. I'm in Zone C in Pasco County, and it's voluntary here. We are currently out of the cone, ever so slightly out. The track bumped north all night after bumping south, so we could be back in at any time. We are not leaving, but my wife knows she can take off at any time if she wants, and I'll watch things here. Typical preparation stuff going on. moving the cars towards the house, boarding up windows, getting loose stuff inside so it does not fly away. Getting fuel and food over the last week was pretty crazy, and I've been here a long time. Because of the recent storm, you can't buy an empty gas can, garbage can, or garbage bags around where I am. We are still recovering from a big storm, and those resources have not caught up yet to be replenished enough to prepare. There is no wood available. It seems like my whole street is staying, and everyone is grilling or just walking around aimlessly. No stores are open today, so no one is working. It's actually kind of a nice day outside when it doesn't rain a little. Calm before the storm. Story 15. My father-in-law was visiting friends near Fort Myers. He could not get a flight home, so he had to rent a car. Luckily, he found one. It took him over 24 hours to get back to Ohio, and he did not stop to sleep, drove straight through. It is usually a 16 to 17-hour drive from where he lives in Ohio to Tampa. He said the traffic was insane. Gas stations had lines wrapped around the block. Many places were running out of gas. I am beyond thankful he is home and safe. For those who will be affected by this, my heart goes out to you. Stay safe. Story 16. My mother in Fort Myers chose not to evacuate, and now she is calling me with anxious updates. I don't even live in Florida, and my heart has been in my throat all day. She said she didn't evacuate because she was worried about losing gas while on the roads out and getting stuck there. Her yard is flooded, and she is expected to lose power later today. Story 17. Evacuating during hurricanes is tough. I remember feeling stressed but also relieved to get to safety. Stay safe, everyone, and look out for each other during this time. Story 18. Currently sheltering in place at my grandmother's house in Clearwater, Florida. I tried every tactic in the book to get my parents and grandmother to leave. If I had left them here on their own and something bad happened, they would not be able to take care of themselves. So, I'm risking my life and hoping that we all don't die. We have everything boarded up, water is frozen, and every jar and pot we have in the house is full. Fingers crossed. Story 19. My house is 8 feet above the Manatee River. I have been filling sandbags for elderly people all day on Monday, barricaded the garage, and lifted furniture on cinder blocks. Looking at where the hurricane might hit, all that work may have been futile. I'm relaxing in my car in front of a shelter outside the evacuation zones. I'm opening a beer right now. I'll probably head in about half an hour. Darn. Story 20. I am an idiot who did not prepare. So far, it hasn't started raining. There is a mandatory evacuation near my place, so we might be next. I don't know. I will update if anyone cares. Story 21. I'm about an hour from St. Mary's, but I haven't seen anyone here plan to evacuate, despite gas stations being packed. The last time I was at the store, the necessities like water and canned food were almost out. I'm not really in an evacuation zone. We could lose power, but I can probably say that my area is going to get hammered with rain and wind. I do hope and pray everyone stays safe during the storm and can get out in time. Story 22. As an Australian, this is absolutely astounding to read. So many people are staying home in what seems to be a strong chance of dying via Milton. Do your best to stay safe, people, please. Is there anywhere to view the storm or uploaded pictures or videos as it goes through? Is the estimation of Milton hitting at about 2 p.m. still accurate? Story 23. Orlando here. Gas is scarce and store shelves are looking pretty bare, but the roads are quiet and mostly empty. Surrounding counties have issued evacuation orders for residents in mobile homes, trailers, tiny homes, and similar structures. Our main concerns in this area are potential power outages, flooding, and debris. For context, I will be at work today until early afternoon, and I know several others who will be working until 8 p.m. tonight. Story 24. Central Florida. Not really evacuating, just going 30 minutes out to a relative's house. Everything is already flooding and the few stores we have are empty, hoping the old 40-year-old trailer home we live in doesn't get obliterated. Story 25. I live in Gainesville and we are hunkering down. There is no evacuation order, but we will get hit by part of the hurricane. The local grocery stores were selling fish and pricey meats for 75% off because they expect it to spoil from power outages. We have a charcoal grill, so we will be eating well even if the power goes out. This is the silver lining I am genuinely excited for. Story 26. I have an uncle with mental disorders. No idea which. He's never been tested. But there's something wrong, and he's refusing to leave his recreational vehicle in Melbourne. I told my mom to make her peace with him before this week. Story 27. I live in northern Saskatchewan, Canada. We had a news story of people from our city who flew there and will not leave. They said they and others plan to hunker down in their hotels. I thought that was extremely selfish. I would think the hotel would have to have staff available to stay with them, or would they pay someone to ride it out with the guests? Story 28. My family and I were at Disney World since Saturday. Everything was business as usual there, aside from some rainy moments. We managed to move our flights pretty easily and departed yesterday, Tuesday night, at about 8 p.m. I was surprised to hear from many other resort goers that they were just planning to ride out the storm. People and their Disney hopes and dreams cannot be squashed by a historical hurricane, evidently. Wild. Story 29. I left Tampa on Monday morning with my roommate and drove to my parents' house in South Carolina. Took 3 hours longer, so it wasn't too bad considering the situation and all the traffic. When I was watching the weather and looking at the patterns, they kept saying it was going to slow down and not be as strong. I told my roommate that was nonsense. It would get stronger. We left the next morning. It hit a Category 4 hurricane overnight and reached Category 5 while we were on the road. We kept seeing the weather stations say it would die out, but it looks like I was right, sadly.